The Cosmic Handshake. The UNSS Odyssey emerged from the Fold space tunnel with a distortion wave that rippled across the star system like a stone dropped in still water. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the main view screen as the massive vessel settled into normal space. At 2 kilometers long, the Odyssey represented humanity's crowning achievement, a deep space exploration vessel built to carry Earth's best and brightest into the unknown. Fold space transition complete, Captain. All systems nominal, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her navigation officer. We've arrived at the coordinates exactly as planned. Elena nodded, allowing herself a small smile. Even after 15 years of interstellar exploration, the miracle of faster-than-light travel hadn't lost its wonder. Humanity had only discovered the technology 30 years ago, catapulting them from a single-planet species to star travelers in less than a generation. Dr. Nakamura, what are we looking at? She asked, turning to her chief science officer. Dr. Kaido Nakamura, a slender man with keen eyes that missed nothing, studied the array of holographic displays surrounding his station. The star is a K-type orange dwarf, slightly cooler than our sun. Third planet shows signs of advanced civilization. Artificial structures visible from orbit, significant energy signatures, and he paused, fingers dancing over controls. Captain, we're detecting artificial satellites in orbit. Many of them. Elena straightened. First contact situation, people. This is what we trained for. She tapped her communication panel. All department heads to the conference room. Dr. Nakamura, compile everything we know about this civilization. Lieutenant Wei, establish passive monitoring of all transmission frequencies. Captain, Lieutenant Wei called out, her voice tight with excitement. We're already receiving transmissions directed at us. They've seen us. Of course they had. The Odyssey's arrival would have been impossible to miss. Humanity hadn't yet mastered subtle approaches through Fold space. The energy signature alone would have been visible to any civilization with decent astronomical instruments. Route it through the translation matrix, Alina ordered. Let's see if the universal language protocols are worth the investment. Within minutes, the ship's AI was processing the alien transmissions, searching for patterns and meaning. By the time Elena and her senior staff had gathered in the conference room, they had their answer. They're inviting us to approach the planet, Dr. Nakamura reported, displaying a series of decoded messages on the room's main screen. Their language structure is complex but logical. The AI estimates 60% comprehension accuracy already. Elena studied the fragmented translations, any signs of hostility or fear. Curiosity, primarily, said Dr. Sanjay Mehta, the mission's psychologist. And something that might be admiration. It's hard to tell without understanding their emotional contexts. They're sending us navigation coordinates, Lieutenant Wei added. Looks like they want us to assume orbit around their planet. Let's accept their invitation, Elena decided after a moment's consideration. But maintain our defensive protocols. First contact is always unpredictable. As the Odyssey moved toward the alien world, more data poured in. The civilization called themselves the Xeranians, and their technological development appeared to be at least a century beyond Earth's in many areas. More advanced power generation, material science, and computational systems. Yet oddly, they seemed to lack certain technologies that humanity had prioritized, like efficient propulsion systems or weaponry. When the Odyssey established orbit around Serana, their homeworld, the true first contact began. The Xeranians requested permission to send a delegation aboard the human vessel, a gesture that surprised Elena. Most spacefaring species would typically invite visitors to their own territory where they control the environment. They're either extremely confident or extremely curious, Dr. Mehta observed. The alien delegation arrived in a small transport vessel that seemed almost delicate compared to the Odyssey's robust shuttlecraft. When the airlock cycled open, humanity had its first glimpse of an intelligent extraterrestrial species. The Xeranians stood just under 2 meters tall, with slender bodies covered in a fine, iridescent scaling that shifted colors with movement. Their faces featured 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, no visible nose, and a small mouth. Most striking were their hands, 6-fingered appendages with double-jointed digits that moved with remarkable precision. "Greetings, travelers from Earth," the lead Xeranian said, its voice translated through the communication systems. "I am Philavorn, Chief Ambassador of the Xeranian Confederation. We welcome you to our star system." Elena stepped forward, performing the diplomatic greeting that had been prepared. "Ambassador Philavorn, I am Captain Elena Reyes of the United Nations Starship Odyssey. On behalf of humanity and Earth, we are honored to meet you." The Xeranian's eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture the humans would later learn indicated intense interest. "Your vessel is remarkable," Philavorn said. "We detected your arrival from the dimensional fold. Such technology is unexpected." Dr. Nakamura glanced at Elena with surprise. The Xeranians recognized fold space technology on site. That implied they understood principles of physics that humanity had only recently discovered. "We've been traveling the stars for 30 years, Elena explained. "The fold space drive was our gateway to interstellar exploration." The Xeranians exchanged looks, their scaling shifting to deeper blues and purples. 30 of your years." Philavorn seemed astonished. "And you've already mastered dimensional folding. Most impressive." The diplomatic meeting continued for hours, each species cautiously sharing information about their civilization, history, and technology. The Xeranians revealed they had been a spacefaring species for over 500 years, but had focused primarily on exploration within their own star system and nearby stars using conventional propulsion. They had theoretical knowledge of fold space technology, but had never prioritized its development. "We find that time spent in transit allows for deeper contemplation," explained Selmore, the Xeranian science representative. "Why rush between stars when the journey itself holds wisdom?" It was a philosophical difference that fascinated both human and Xeranian scholars. Where humanity had pushed relentlessly toward faster travel, the Xeranians had focused on efficiency, sustainability, and depth of knowledge. As the diplomatic exchanges progressed over several days, both species grew more comfortable. The Xeranians were particularly interested in human art, music, and literature, cultural expressions that seemed to transcend species boundaries. In return, they shared their own artistic achievements, mathematical compositions that created patterns of light and sound so beautiful they brought tears to human eyes. "They've achieved so much more than we have in some areas," Dr. Nakamura commented during a private briefing with Captain Reyes. "Their understanding of quantum entanglement makes our best theories look primitive. Yet they seem genuinely impressed by our achievements." "Different evolutionary paths, different priorities," Elena replied. "They developed in a resource-rich system with few natural predators. We evolved on a planet where survival often meant fighting or fleeing. It shapes how a species thinks." The observation proved more prophetic than either of them realized. On the 7th day of their contact with the Xeranians, the Odyssey's sensors detected another dimensional fold opening at the edge of the star system. "Unscheduled fold space signature detected," reported Lieutenant Wei, her voice tense. "Configuration unknown. Definitely not human." Elena was immediately on alert. "Contact the Xeranians. Ask if they're expecting visitors." The answer came swiftly and was not reassuring. The Xeranians had no idea who might be arriving, and their reaction bordered on panic. "The new vessel is massive, Captain," Dr. Nakamura reported as sensor data flowed in. "At least 5 times the size of the Odyssey. Energy signatures suggest weapon systems powered and active." On the view screen, Elena watched as a massive ship emerged completely from fold space, a dark, angular vessel bristling with what could only be weapons arrays. Its design philosophy was the antithesis of the elegant Xeranian ships or the functional efficiency of human vessels. "We're being scanned," Lieutenant Wei announced. Very aggressive sensor penetration attempts. Our countermeasures are barely holding. Before Elena could respond, a transmission cut through all communication channels, overriding even the Odyssey's secured systems. Attention inferior species. This system is now under the protection of the Vorax Imperium. Prepare to receive our representatives and submit to assessment. The message repeated in several languages, including a rough approximation of English and what Elena recognized as the Terranian language. The implication was clear. Whoever these Vorax were, they had encountered many species before and had developed translation matrices for numerous languages. Tactical analysis, Elena ordered, her voice calm despite the sudden threat. Their technology appears significantly advanced, reported Security Chief Rodriguez. Weapons systems beyond our classification parameters. If it comes to a fight. He didn't need to finish the thought. The Odyssey was an exploration vessel with defensive capabilities, not a warship. Elena opened a channel to the Xaranian leadership. Ambassador Thelavorn, are you familiar with these Vorax? The Xaranian's image on the screen showed obvious distress, their scales having turned a pale, sickly yellow. We know of them by reputation only, Captain Reyes. The Vorax are a predatory species that demands tribute from worlds they encounter. Those who resist are eliminated. Elena's mind raced through options. Run, fight, negotiate. First contact had just become infinitely more complicated. Inform our crew, she finally decided, and open diplomatic channels with the Vorax vessel. Let's find out what they want before we decide how to respond. As the Odyssey's communication officers worked to establish contact with the Vorax ship, Elena couldn't help but notice how the Xaranians seemed resigned to whatever might come. Their species had never needed to develop the aggressive survival instincts that had driven humanity's rise. Perhaps, she thought grimly, that human tendency toward combativeness might finally prove useful in the larger galaxy. The ultimatum. The Vorax delegation arrived aboard the Odyssey 12 hours later, having demanded that both humans and Xaranians meet them on the human vessel. Elena had agreed, recognizing the tactical advantage of home ground, even if the Vorax technology clearly outclassed their own. Unlike the slender, graceful Xaranians, the Vorax were massive. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies were covered in segmented armor-like plating that clicked faintly as they moved. Their faces featured 3 forward-facing eyes arranged vertically and mandibles that flexed as they spoke. Everything about them conveyed predatory intent, from their posture to the weapons visibly integrated into their armor. I am Drakfor, subjugation commander of the Vorax Imperium, announced the lead alien, his voice resonating through the translation system with artificial depth. This system has been claimed for the Imperium. You will submit to assessment. Elena stood her ground, deliberately maintaining a relaxed posture despite the Vorax commander towering over her. I am Captain Elena Reyes of the United Nations Starship Odyssey. We are visitors to this system, here at the invitation of the Xaranian people. Drakfor turned his 3 eyes toward the Xaranian delegation, who had positioned themselves slightly behind the humans. The Xaranians have no authority to issue invitations. This system lies within the expansion zone of the Imperium. Ambassador Thelavorn stepped forward, scales shifting to a determined blue despite obvious fear. The Vorax have no claim here. This is our ancestral home, and we have never encountered your kind before today. The Vorax commander made a sound that the translators interpreted as laughter. Your ignorance of our claim does not invalidate it. The Imperium expands as is our right. You have 2 options. Submit to assessment and accept your place as a tributary species, or resist and be eliminated. Elena noticed Dr. Mehta, the xenopsychologist, making subtle hand signals from the side of the room. Recognition signals they had developed for first contact situations. He was indicating classic domination behavior, territorial assertion, and confidence born of past success. These Vorax were conquerors who expected compliance. What exactly does assessment entail? Elena asked, buying time as she studied the aliens. Drak-4 seemed pleased by the question. A simple process. We evaluate your species' potential usefulness to the Imperium. Those with valuable qualities serve as specialists. Those without serve as labor or resource providers. In other words, slaves of varying privileges, Alina thought grimly. And if we decline this generous offer? She asked, her tone carefully neutral. The Vorax commander's mandibles clicked rapidly. Then you will be eliminated as inefficient use of resources. The Exaranians clearly lack military capability. Our scans show minimal weapons technology on their world. Your vessel, while impressively built for such a primitive species, cannot stand against even one of our scout ships. Alina exchanged glances with Ambassador Thelavorn. The Exaranian scales had paled to almost white, a sign of extreme distress. They had learned. We request time to consider your proposal, Alina said. This is first contact for us with your species. Our diplomatic protocols require consultation. Drak-4 made that laughing sound again. You may have 12 of your hours. The Imperium is generous to potential assets. After the Vorax delegation returned to their vessel, the humans and Serenians gathered in the Odyssey's secure conference room. They will destroy us, Selmore, the Xaranian scientist, stated flatly. Their technological advantage is insurmountable. We have studied their vessel. Their weapons systems could reduce our cities to ash in hours. And the Odyssey? Alina asked Dr. Nakamura. The science officer's expression was grim. Their energy output suggests weapons capabilities at least 15 times our own. We wouldn't stand a chance in direct combat. Alina paced the length of the conference room, mind working through scenarios. Ambassador Thelavorn, have your people ever faced a military threat before? The Exaranian scales rippled in a pattern they'd come to recognize as negative. We have had territorial disputes among our own kind in ancient history, but we resolved such conflicts through reason millennia ago. We have no standing military, no weapons beyond those needed for scientific research and asteroid mining. Then we need to create an advantage, Alina said firmly, because I don't plan to surrender my ship or my people to become servants of the Vorax Imperium. But what advantage could we possibly create? Asked Selmore. Their technology far exceeds our combined capabilities. Alina smiled thinly. Technology isn't everything. Sometimes the decisive factor is what you're willing to do that your enemy isn't expecting. Over the next 10 hours, humans and Serenians worked together in a frenzy of creativity and determination. Dr. Nakamura and Selmore led a team analyzing the Vorax vessel's energy signatures, identifying potential vulnerabilities. Lieutenant Rodriguez and the security team modified the Odyssey's defensive systems based on those findings. Meanwhile, Alina and Ambassador Thelavorn prepared their diplomatic response. When Drak-4 contacted them as the deadline approached, Alina requested a meeting on neutral ground, space itself, with small delegations from each species meeting in environmental suits between their vessels. An unusual request, the Vorax commander responded, mandibles clicking rapidly. But acceptable. We will demonstrate our superiority in any environment. 3 hours later, Alina floated in the vacuum of space, the magnificent curve of Sarana visible below her. She was accompanied by Dr. Nakamura and Lieutenant Rodriguez, all wearing the Odyssey's advanced environmental suits. 20 meters away, 3 Vorax representatives hovered in suits that appeared to be extensions of their natural armor. Between them floated Ambassador Thelavorn and 2 other Xaranians, their environmental suits shimmering with the same iridescence as their scales. We have considered your offer, Commander Drak-4. Alina began, her voice transmitted through comm channels. And we respectfully decline. The Vorax commander's 3 eyes narrowed. Then you choose elimination, a wasteful decision. Actually, Alina continued, we propose an alternative. The Xaranians possess scientific knowledge that would be valuable to the Imperium, knowledge that would be lost if you destroy them. And humans have a particular skill that might interest you as well. What skill could primitive beings like yourselves possibly offer the Imperium? Drakvor's contemptuous tone came through clearly despite the translation. Elena smiled behind her helmet visor. We're exceptionally good at turning disadvantages into advantages. Allow me to demonstrate. She made a subtle hand gesture, and Dr. Nakamura activated a device attached to his suit. Immediately, the space around them filled with an electromagnetic pulse specifically calibrated to the frequency Rodriguez had identified in the Vorax technology. The effect was immediate. The Vorax environmental suits seized up, their systems temporarily disabled. Not enough to harm them. The suit's life support would continue functioning, but enough to demonstrate vulnerability. What is this treachery? Drakvor demanded, unable to move properly in his now rigid suit. This is negotiation, Elena replied calmly. Right now, similar devices have been activated near your vessel's primary sensor arrays. Your ship is temporarily blind and experiencing selective systems failures. Nothing permanent, I assure you. She gestured toward the Exoranians, who had remained unaffected by the pulse. Exoranian technology operates on different principles. Principles they developed through peaceful exploration rather than conquest. Principles your scanners couldn't identify. You dare attack representatives of the Imperium. Drakvor's voice vibrated with rage. No attack, Elena corrected him. Just a demonstration. The Exoranians can't fight you directly. They never developed weapons of mass destruction. But with human ingenuity combined with their scientific knowledge, we found a way to neutralize your technological advantage temporarily. She gave him a moment to process this before continuing. Now imagine what would happen if knowledge of this vulnerability spread to all the species you've subjugated. How long would the Imperium last if its technology could be disabled by simple devices built from common materials? The implication hung in the silence of space. Elena had gambled everything on this moment, on the hope that the Vorax, like many bullies, would back down when faced with unexpected resistance. You bluff, Drakvor finally said, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. Your primitive species cannot possibly threaten the Imperium. Perhaps not directly, Elena acknowledged. But we humans have a long history of asymmetric warfare. When we can't win through strength, we find creative alternatives. And the Exoranians have scientific knowledge your species hasn't even begun to explore. She paused, then delivered her ultimatum. Here's our counteroffer. The Vorax Imperium recognizes Xoranian independence and establishes peaceful trade relations instead of conquest. In return, the Xoranians share some of their scientific advancements, ones that won't enhance your military capability, but will benefit your people in other ways. And if we refuse, then before you destroy us, we'll transmit the specifications for these devices on all frequencies, along with the exact vulnerabilities they exploit in Vorax technology. Every species in 50 light years will know exactly how to disable your ships. It was a monumental bluff. The electromagnetic pulse was a jury-rigged solution that had required the combined brilliance of human and Xoranian scientists working around the clock. It wouldn't work twice against the same target, and the Vorax would eventually develop countermeasures. But Drakvor couldn't know that. For long minutes, the Vorax commander floated in silence, his rigid suit preventing any readable body language. Finally, he spoke. The Imperium does not negotiate with inferior species. Elena's heart sank, but she maintained her composure. Then you leave us no choice but to. However, Drakvor interrupted. I am authorized to establish protectorate status for species that demonstrate potential. The Exoranians and humans have shown unexpected resourcefulness. Protectorate status would grant you autonomy while maintaining formal recognition of Imperium authority. It was a face-saving measure, a way for the Vorax to retreat without admitting defeat. Elena glanced at Ambassador Thela Vorn, who gave this subtle gesture they had agreed would signal acceptance. We find these terms acceptable, Elena said, provided that protectorate status includes non-interference in internal affairs and unrestricted scientific and cultural exchange between our species. Agreed, Drakfor said after another pause. The details will be formalized in a treaty. The Imperium recognizes the value of diverse approaches. As the meeting concluded and Elena returned to the Odyssey with her team, she knew they had achieved something remarkable. Through the combined strengths of human ingenuity and Cyranian science, they had faced down a superior force and negotiated a peace that preserved their independence. Do you think they'll honor the agreement? Dr. Nakamura asked as they removed their environmental suits back aboard the ship. Elena considered the question carefully. I think they'll honor it as long as it's in their interest to do so. And it's in their interest not to face resistance movements across their entire territory. The Vorax feared losing control more than they desired conquest, observed Ambassador Thelavorn, who had accompanied them back to the Odyssey. A fascinating psychological insight into their species. A very human insight, Elena noted with a smile. We have plenty of experience with empires rising and falling throughout our history. As the Tyranian ambassador's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green, Elena realized they had done more than just save two species from subjugation. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about humanity's place in the cosmos. What humans lacked in advanced technology or evolutionary advantages, they made up for in adaptability, creativity, and sheer determination. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest contribution to the galactic community, not fold space drives or advanced weapons, but the indomitable spirit that refused to accept defeat even when outmatched. The galactic stage. 6 months after the confrontation with the Vorax, the Odyssey remained in orbit around Serana. What had begun as a first contact mission had evolved into the foundation of an unprecedented alliance between humans and Seranians. Captain Elena Reyes stood in the newly constructed Joint Command Center, a facility that seamlessly blended human and Seranian architectural styles and technology. Around her, crew members from both species worked side by side, their initial awkwardness long since replaced by mutual respect and even friendship. The latest reports from Earth arrived this morning, reported Commander Jackson, handing Elena a datapad. The United Nations Security Council has unanimously approved the Alliance Treaty. Earth is officially aligned with Serana. Elena reviewed the report with satisfaction. The diplomatic corps had done their job well, convincing Earth's governments that this alliance was not just beneficial, but potentially essential for humanity's future. The existence of species like the Vorax had been a sobering revelation for Earth's leaders. And the technology exchange program? She asked. Proceeding ahead of schedule, Dr. Nakamura replied, joining them at the central console. The Seranian quantum computation principles are revolutionizing our computer systems. In return, our fold space drive technology has already been successfully integrated into their first long-range exploration vessel. The complementary nature of human and Seranian technology had proven to be more valuable than either side had initially anticipated. Humans excelled at bold technological leaps and practical applications, while Seranians possessed deeper theoretical understanding and sustainability principles that made those technologies more efficient and stable. Captain Reyes called Lieutenant Wei from her communications station. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Vorax diplomatic vessel in the outer system. Elena frowned slightly. The Vorax had maintained a presence at the edge of the Seranian system since the confrontation, ostensibly as protectors according to their treaty, but everyone understood they were really observers making sure their newfound protectorates didn't become too powerful too quickly. Put it through, she ordered. The main view screen activated, revealing the now familiar face of Drakfor. The Vorax commander had been appointed as permanent liaison to the Seranian Human Protectorate, a position that seemed to be equal parts diplomat and warden. Captain Reyes, the Vorax began without preamble. The Imperium has detected an approaching vessel of unknown configuration. It will enter this system within 48 hours. Elena exchanged glances with Ambassador Thelavorn, who had entered the command center during the transmission. Thank you for the notification, Commander Drakfor. Do you have any additional information about this vessel? Negative. Its technology signature does not match any species known to the Imperium. There was a pause before the Vorax added, "The vessel's size and energy output suggest significant military capability." The implication was clear. The Vorax were concerned. A species unknown even to their extensive database, with technology that might rival their own, represented a potential threat to their dominance. "We appreciate the warning," Alina replied diplomatically. "We'll coordinate our response with your vessel." After the transmission ended, Ambassador Thelavorn's scales shifted to a worried gray. Another potential aggressor. Our world cannot withstand repeated threats. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Alina cautioned. "Not every advanced species is looking for conquest. We weren't." Nevertheless, she immediately ordered the Odyssey to full alert status and contacted Earth to inform them of the development. The diplomatic success with the Vorax had been partially luck and partially bluff. They couldn't count on the same strategy working twice. Over the next 2 days, human and Saranian scientists worked together to enhance their sensor arrays, hoping to gather more information about the approaching vessel before it arrived. The Vorax, surprisingly, shared some of their more advanced scanning technology, perhaps recognizing that a common threat warranted cooperation. "We've got something," Dr. Nakamura announced as the mysterious vessel crossed the heliopause of the Saranian system. "The ship's design is unlike anything in either of our databases, but there's something familiar about its propulsion signature." "Familiar how?" Alina pressed, studying the blurry image on the screen. The science officer frowned in concentration. "It's using a fold space drive, but the energy pattern is. It's almost like a more advanced version of our own technology." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. Could it be human? Another Earth ship we don't know about? "Impossible," Commander Jackson stated firmly. "We know the location of every fold-capable vessel Earth has built. There aren't that many of them yet." As the mysterious vessel approached the inner system, it began broadcasting on multiple frequencies, a standard approach for peaceful contact. The message, when they finally decoded it, left everyone in the command center speechless. "Greetings to the human vessel Odyssey and to the natives of this star system. This is the Alliance ship Pathfinder. We represent the Centaurid Proximant Alliance and seek peaceful contact with our human cousins and their new allies." "Human cousins," Alina repeated, stunned. "Centaurid Proximant Alliance. We've never established colonies in those systems." The answer came when the Pathfinder established visual communication. The beings on the view screen were humanoid, but clearly not human. Taller, with slightly elongated features and skin tones ranging from deep blue to purple. Yet something about their appearance triggered immediate recognition. "We understand your confusion, Captain Reyes," said the being who introduced himself as Navigator Lirin. "We are what your people might call parallel evolution humans, a branch of humanity that evolved on planets in the Alpha Centauri and Proxima Centauri systems." It was a concept straight out of speculative fiction, the idea that humanoid life might have evolved separately but similarly on multiple worlds due to similar environmental conditions. "We detected your fold space signature months ago," Lirin continued. "It matched theoretical patterns our scientists had predicted but never observed naturally. We've been trying to develop similar technology for decades." "But how did you know who we were?" Alina asked, still struggling to process this revelation. "We've been monitoring radio transmissions from Earth for over a century," another Centaurian explained. "We learned your languages, studied your history. We were preparing for eventual contact, though we didn't expect you to achieve interstellar travel so quickly." The implications were staggering. Humanity was not alone, not just in the sense of sharing the galaxy with alien species like the Exaranians and Vorax, but in the sense that human-like intelligence had evolved independently in nearby star systems. "The Vorax Imperium has also been monitoring your approach," Alina informed them. "They consider this system under their protection." Navigator Lirin's expression darkened. "We are familiar with the Vorax. Their expansion has approached our borders as well. In fact, one reason for our journey was to warn potential allies about their territorial ambitions. Over the following weeks, a remarkable four-way diplomatic dance unfolded in the Xeranian system. The Earth humans and Xeranians strengthened their alliance with the addition of the Centauri Proximan representatives, while the Vorax watched with increasing concern. Elena found herself at the center of these historic negotiations, drawing on everything she had learned during her years of exploration and first contact missions. The Vorax respect strength, she explained during a strategy session with representatives from all three allied species. Right now, they see us as useful but ultimately inferior. We need to change that perception without triggering an immediate military response. Our alliance already represents a potential threat to their expansion, pointed out Selmore, who had become the Xeranians' chief diplomatic strategist. Three species working together, each with unique technological and cultural strengths. Navigator Liran nodded in agreement. The Centauri Proximan Alliance has developed defensive technologies specifically designed to counter Vorax weapon systems. We've had longer to study them than you have. Then perhaps it's time to renegotiate our protectorate status, Elena suggested, not as three separate species seeking the Vorax's protection, but as a unified alliance offering mutual defense and cooperation, including with the Imperium if they're willing to treat us as equals. The proposal was bold, perhaps dangerously so. The Vorax Imperium had never treated any species as equals, viewing the galaxy through a strictly hierarchical lens with themselves at the pinnacle. When they presented their unified position to Commander Drakfor, his reaction was predictably negative. The Imperium does not recognize multi-species alliances as sovereign entities, he declared, mandibles clicking rapidly in what they now recognized as agitation. Each species must maintain its individual relationship with the Imperium. Times change, Commander, Elena responded calmly. Our alliance is a reality, whether the Imperium recognizes it officially or not. We're not asking permission. We're extending an invitation for the Vorax to join a mutually beneficial partnership rather than maintaining the fiction of protection. Drakfor's three eyes narrowed to slits. The High Command will view this as insurrection. They could, Elena acknowledged, or they could see it as an opportunity. The Vorax Imperium has expanded through conquest because that was the most efficient strategy when dealing with isolated, weaker species. But against a united front of multiple civilizations, that strategy becomes costly and inefficient. She gestured to the representatives of all three allied species who stood beside her. Together, we offer scientific, cultural, and defensive capabilities that would benefit the Imperium far more as allies than as subjugated worlds. The choice is yours. Adapt to a changing galactic reality, or expend tremendous resources fighting an unnecessary war. It was the most dangerous gambit of Elena's career, challenging an empire that could potentially destroy them all. But she had calculated that the Vorax, for all their aggression, were ultimately pragmatic. Their empire had survived for centuries because they chose efficient paths to power, not because they fought unnecessarily costly battles. After weeks of tense negotiations and several consultations with the Vorax High Command, Drakfor finally returned with their answer. The Imperium recognizes the Tri-System Alliance as a sovereign entity, he stated formally, using the name they had chosen for their united civilization. A treaty of non-aggression and limited cooperation will replace the protectorate status. It was a monumental victory, the first time in recorded history that the Vorax had treated other species as diplomatic equals rather than subjects. As the formalities concluded and the representatives celebrated their historic achievement, Dr. Nakamura approached Elena privately. "You know what truly made this possible, don't you?" he asked with a thoughtful expression. Elena raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Humanity," he explained.